Hello, junkies. Welcome to episode number 20 of Nocturnal Throwback, the podcast where we re-podcast the original first draft Nocturnal from 2007, 13 years ago. What? Gang, we are not out of the COVID woods yet. The deep, dark COVID woods where the sorcerer lives, he's still out there. If you have to go out of the house or the apartment, wear a mask. Yes, a mask does mitigate your chances of catching COVID. No, you don't only need to wear a mask if you have the COVID. Yes, it's very, very easy. Even a caveman can do it. No, you won't pull a hammy wearing a mask. You won't break your thumb. You won't get chafing about the mouth and nose region. It's very, very easy. Barely an inconvenience. You can do this. I have faith in you. Don't be a grandma killer. Speaking of killers, I am 25% through the final draft of The Killer, the last and the biggest GFL novella. We hopefully will have the ebook and the audiobook out by the end of 2020. Don't have a specific date for sure. No print for the novellas. Not yet anyways. And The Killer should be out close to the release of The Gangster, the long-awaited book 6 of the GFL saga. We are now streaming Sigler in Place every Tuesday and Thursday on not only Facebook Live, but YouTube Live and on Twitch TV. You can follow me at these places and be ready for days that start with a T. Facebook.com/Scott Sigler, YouTube.com/Scott Sigler, subscribe, Twitch.tv/Scott Sigler, follow me, add me as a friend. Again, that is 6 p.m. Pacific time on days that start with a T. It's, no big deal. Just 1 hour of freeform television for you to get you through this lockdown COVID gloom and doom, featuring me and a real girl herself. We talk about the state of our books. We read brand new fiction. We make an enormous amount of stupid jokes. You can chat with other junkies in real time. It's an all-around glorious event. So join us. And now let's jump back in that Wayback Machine and listen to the original Nocturnal podcast from 2007. Enjoy. Welcome to Nocturnal, the free podcast-only novel, episode number 20. Nocturnal is a podcast-only novel you can't buy in stores and you can't peek at the end. Written and performed by Scott Sigler. More information and more free stories available at scottsigler.com. This book contains adult language, mature situations, and lots of violence. Hello, junkies. I hope you had a great Easter. And even though this is posting on a Monday, it's still on time. 18 straight years of podcasting without ever missing an episode. And if you're wondering how I can be on time posting on a Monday, well, you need to read about Sigler's First Law, which is posted over at scottsigler.com. And you know what? For those of you on the East Coast who are bitching and pissing and moaning in the forums, hey, I'm on the West Coast. It's still Monday here. So we got 24 minutes of pure story for you. After the episode, I'll tell you about a bunch of cool stuff that's going on, including some problems we've been having with the feed that are making extra episodes appear in your feed, 2 big interviews coming up on National Public Radio. That's right, Daddy's hitting the big time. The book tour is almost here. April 1st is right around the corner, and you'll be able to go into your local bookstores to buy Infected, and we're working on a pretty kick-ass trailer. We'll talk about that after the episode, but for now, let's get into the story so far. In the last episode of Nocturnal, the police had a showdown with Jebediah Erickson, the man they suspect to be the one called Savior. Erickson attacked the police officers and was himself cut down when his own knife was thrown into his stomach by San Francisco homicide detective Brian Clauser. 3 officers were wounded in the altercation, including Clauser, whom Erickson shot in the shoulder. Clauser and his partner Pookie Chang had been ordered not to go to Erickson's house and had to sneak away from the scene before they got in trouble with police chief Amy Zoe. Brian and Pookie went back into Erickson's house to grab, quote, a souvenir, end quote, and sneak out the back where no one would see them escape. Meanwhile, Aggie James is still trapped in the catacombs of Marie's children beneath the streets of San Francisco. He saw the full horror that is Marie Luttrell, also known as Mommy. If Aggie is to escape, he must do the bidding of Hillary, another member of the Marie's Children cult. And now, Episode 20 of Nocturnal. Chief Amy Zoe took a sip of her tea. The tiny porcelain Hello Kitty cup held only imaginary tea, of course, but she couldn't dream of anything better. She said. This is very good. Which one of you made this? Her twin girls giggled. We both made it, Mom, they said in unison. It spooked the hell out of Amy whenever they did that, and at 7, they were reaching that age where they might know that it drove their mom crazy, and they did it just to see what would happen. She'd been 8 when she started pushing her mother's buttons on purpose, but Tabitha and Murr were early achievers. They both took a sip of their imaginary tea. Tabs reached for an imaginary piece of cake. Murr didn't like the imaginary cake. She had said as much after the first imaginary bite. A tea party with Tabitha, who preferred to be called Tabs because it was shorter and funner, as she described it, and Mary, who preferred to be called Murr, for reasons Amy and her husband had never been able to pry out of the girl. Amy realized with a start that Tabs was wearing her heavy, silky black hair in ponytails. Murr was not. Murr had her hair down, like she always had before, like Tabs always had before. They had both inherited Amy's hair, not a trace of her husband Jack's thin, blonde locks. Tabitha, honey, your hair looks nice. Thank you, she said, and took a sip. Did you try that hairstyle out today or just for the tea party? Murr laughed and pointed at Tabs. Ha ha! You've been wearing those stupid things for 3 days! Tabs looked crestfallen. Mommy didn't even notice, Murr said. I told you it was stupid to try and be different. Murr, you stop that, Amy snapped. Murr's eyes widened and she shrank into her chair. Amy's own words echoed in her ears. She'd talked to Murr not like a mother to a daughter, but like the chief of police to a subordinate. Murr, I'm sorry I spoke that way, but you shouldn't say such things to your sister. Tab stood suddenly and threw her Hello Kitty teacup across the room. It landed noiselessly on her bed. You didn't notice, she said, because you're never home. Tabs ran out of the room, her little dress swishing with each little step. Amy moved into damage control mode. On the one hand, the fact that the girls were trying different things and not just being clones of each other was great. On the other, one daughter had stretched to try something new and Amy hadn't noticed, and the other daughter thought that trying something new was stupid. Mary, honey, I'm going to go talk to your sister, okay? Murr crossed her arms over her chest and stuck out her lower lip. Don't call me that. I like Murr. Why did she have to go and ruin the party? We never get to see you. Honey, I know, but you have to understand. Her phone rang. Damn it, she thought. Not now. She didn't want to answer it, but she was the chief of police, so she did. Chief Zoe here.
Chief, it's Sean. Bad news. It's Erickson. Break-in at his house. He's in the hospital.
Amy's breath locked up in her chest. This couldn't be happening. When? How is he?
This morning. He's in surgery now. Stab wound. Fucked up his kidney, apparently. That's all I have for now.
Where are you?
5 minutes from his house. I'm on my way.
She swallowed. Has anyone gone inside?
I don't think so,
Sean said.
John Smith is on the scene. He's in the crime task force. They call him Black Mr. Burns. He was walking by and he called in a broken front door. Then Erickson showed up and attacked him.
What? Why would Erickson do that? Why would he attack a cop?
I don't know, boss. Initial reports from 2 patrol officers confirm his story. But get this. John Smith is the guy who stabbed him.
Amy heard the phone's plastic creaking. She stopped herself from squeezing it. John Smith, a man whose life Brian Clauser had saved. Clauser and Chang, were they involved?
Apparently not.
Was one of the patrol officers Tonda Murphy?
Bingo, Chief.
A break-in. Erickson in the hospital, in surgery, and 2 of the cops involved owed their life to Brian Clauser. You managed the scene, Amy said. No one goes in that house, including you. Lock it down, Sean. Lock it down tight.
But what if people are inside, Chief? What if someone is hurt in there?
No one goes in, she shouted. Murr ran out of the room. No one goes in, Sean, and I'll know if someone did. Trust me. I'm going to the hospital to see Erickson. You stay at his house until I get there. You got that?
Yeah, Chief, I got it. Well, how long will that be?
I don't know, Amy said, then hung up and ran out of the room, heading for her car. Robin wrapped gauze around Brian's shoulder, her fingertips gently touching his cool skin. He'd been shot, and they came to her apartment. Not a hospital, her apartment. That meant whatever they had been doing, it was several kinds of illegal. She'd washed off the wound, amazed at the amount of blood that had soaked into his black sweater. "Brian, are you a hemophiliac?" "Dunno," he said. His head hung low, black hair dangling in his face. That's the way he always looked when he was deep in his own mind, kind of like Rodin's The Thinker, without the head resting on the fist. He'd been shot in the shoulder, and it barely seemed to bother him. "Why would he be a hemophiliac?" Pookie said. "The wound doesn't look that bad." Robin nodded. "Yeah, I know, but he bled so damn much. It's a through and through. Should have damaged the bone, but it didn't. It feels okay, Brian, but we need to get you down to the morgue for an x-ray. Might have just been a bullet fragment or ricochet shrapnel. The wound isn't very big, but you bled like a stuck pig." She gestured to the bloody sweater that she'd dropped into a white garbage can. Beaded red blood, already drying to a dark crimson, hung on the white plastic. The black sweater was a mass of wet cotton sitting in the bottom. He'd bled a lot. She'd stay on him and make sure he got that checked out. "Okay, Brian," she said. "You're all done. Are you sure you don't want to go to a hospital?" "He can't. We'd have to report an incident, Robs. As long as he's okay, he's just going to have to stop being such a little pussy and tough it out." "Thanks for the advice, Pooks." "You're welcome." "All right, Brian, rotate your arm," Robin said. Brian winced as he slowly extended his right arm and rotated it. "How's that feel?" Like I've been shot in the shoulder, Robin." "Pussy! Oh, excuse me. Little tickle in my throat. Pussy!" "Pookie, shut up." "Sorry, Brian. I don't work on live shooting victims all that often. Now that's done, are you boys going to tell me what's in the blanket?" She pointed to her kitchen table, where a dog-sized lump lay wrapped up in a gray cot blanket, the kind they keep in the trunks of police cruisers. Emma sat next to the table, between it and Robin, staring up at the Emma-sized lump. Her head was down, but her eyes were locked on it. She was almost on point. "You don't want to know." "Protecting my poor, delicate feminine mind, is that it?" "It's not like that, Robin," Brian said. "We want to keep you out of it as much as we can. Trust me, Chief Zoe is about to go on the warpath." Robin had had maybe 5 hours sleep in the past 3 days. All the bodies in the morgue, the analysis, preparing samples of Marco Gastineau for stonemason to analyze. No one had claimed the body, and she was fudging the paperwork to keep the corpse down in the morgue as long as they could. With a total lack of answers, and prompted by Rex Deprovdichuk's samples, Stone wanted to study Gastineau and see if they could find more clues to this crazy Z chromosome issue. "Keep me out of it. You guys have me breaking procedure more times than I can count, and now you want to keep me out of it? When Zoe goes on the warpath, do you really think you can protect me? Well, fuck that, boys. It's too late for that. What the hell is under that blanket?" Brian and Pookie exchanged a glance. Brian nodded. "That, my Robin Bo Bobbin, would be an example of fake taxidermy," Pookie said. "Brian is going to take it to a taxidermist and see what he can find out." "Okay, let me see it." Brian stood, still rotating his shoulder. "Fine, I'll make you a deal. If you still have any of my clothes here, I'll trade you a look for something to wear." She laughed. "Jesus Christ, Brian, all you ever fucking wear is black sweaters, and you probably lived here for 3 months, so yeah, I've got a whole drawer full of things, and they're in the bedroom, and you know damn well where I keep them." She stopped herself. She was rambling again, talking so long she couldn't even take a breath. Goddamn bennies. She had to back off, and soon. Brian used his good arm to gesture towards the blanket. "Have at it, Toots." He walked towards her bedroom. She walked to the table. Emma moved to block her. The dog's head was still hung low, eyes still fixed on the lump. "Baby, watch out now," Robin said, then stepped over Emma. She unfolded the blanket, then stared down at what had been hidden inside. "Hey, Pooks," she said quietly. "Yeah, Robs?" "This is some pretty fucked up shit right here." "You can say that again, hot stuff." Hillary led him out of the room with the bars on the floor. Before they exited, he saw more light coming from below. The light came through the door, lighting up a cone of the room. The orange light flickered a little bit, but was far stronger than the candles. It was enough to see that the room looked like a captain's cabin from one of those Johnny Depp pirate movies. Old, dirty black wood, some glossy frames on the wall that looked brand new. He couldn't make out the art inside those frames. No tables, no chairs, no furniture except for the small whitish piano. The light was also enough for him to comprehend Marie's bulk and see quite clearly that there was no way she could ever fit through that door. They'd have to tear the room apart to get her out, and it looked like the room hadn't been touched in a long, long time. There were no other doors. Mommy slid off the Mexican, her movements making the dozens of backlit fetuses jiggle inside her translucent stomach. He was still screaming, and no one was paying any attention. Hillary pushed Aggie, and he moved on. They had come into the room with the bars on the floor from the right, but going out she made him turn left. The dirt-dug hallway widened a little bit. Up ahead, he could see an open space and the flicker of torches. She stopped him, then reached into a hole in the dirt wall and pulled out a filthy, gray felt poncho with a hood. She put it on him as if he were a 3-year-old. The thin poncho reeked of mildew and some strange, sour body odor. She reached into the hole again and pulled out a moth-eaten, moldy plaid sleeping bag. She wrapped this around his shoulders, obscuring his shape. Even at his worst moments as a human being, sleeping in gutters filled with dirty rainwater, going weeks without bathing, maybe pissing on himself, maybe shitting himself, he had never smelled this bad. Never. She led him out onto a ledge made of rocks, old timbers, what looked like a dented highway sign, and other pieces of societal refuse. The ledge overlooked a shallow cavern, laid out like a strip mine, or a version of a sports stadium. In the middle of the cavern, the lowest part, looked like what was the broken deck of an old wooden ship. Splintered boards, planks, even some chewed-up railings still stood. A broken mast reached up from the center of the deck, some 15 feet high, before ending in jagged shards of dirty wood, and surrounded with burning torches. To Aggie's left, at the back of the boat, he saw what looked like the front of a captain's cabin, and in it, a doorway. Through that door, a visual trace of something huge and white and slug-like. Mommy. Aggie put it all together. Mommy lived in the captain's cabin of an old wooden sailing ship. The ceiling of that cabin, that was where he'd sat and watched. They'd put in jail cell bars and metal grates so people could look down into the cabin, look down upon Mommy. But how could a big ship like that get underground? Just where the hell was he? And how could Mommy have gotten in there? She was huge. The old cabin door would have made even a medium-sized man turn slightly sideways to enter. All around the deck rose a 10-foot-high wall, haphazardly constructed of dirt and rocks and bricks and broken chunks of concrete. Dozens of openings in the wall lined the broken deck, leading into twisting, intersecting, misshapen hallways made up of the same materials. More like open trenches than hallways. The walls rose up like jagged rock formations in a miniature, weathered badlands, the little dirt plateaus floating as islands, isolated by the negative space of the trenches. On dozens of those plateaus, several bonfires burned, filling the shallow cavern with a steady orange light. Aggie guessed the trenches spread away from the ruined ship, maybe 100 feet in all directions. Surrounding the crisscrossing trenches sat the balcony ridge upon which Aggie and Hillary stood. Hillary sat down, so Aggie did the same. Their legs dangled over the edge of the old highway sign. The ridge was another 20 feet above the narrow plateaus made by the crisscrossing trenches, and it ran all the way around, framing a space some 200 feet across. From this height, he could see down into most of the trenches, at least part of the way. The wall behind the balcony ledge had several tunnels leading away from it, leading into the darkness.
"I have to go get something," Hillary said. "You will wait here."
"Alone?" Aggie said, unable to hide the fear in his hissing voice. But...
"You just sit here. No one will come out yet. Probably. You stay in that blanket. You do not talk to anyone. Don't move. The family will not be out to watch for a little while yet.
Watch what?
Watch the grooms walk. Now I go. I may be a little while, so you don't go anywhere. If you leave this ledge, they will find you. They will kill you. Or worse.
Hillary stood and walked into a tunnel leading off the back of the narrow ledge, leaving Aggie alone with his feet dangling out over the open space of the strange trenches that surrounded the shattered wreck of an old sailing ship. Brian rolled his right arm around. The bones cracked a little, and it hurt, but it already felt much better than it had earlier. He grabbed his blanket bundle and got out of the car. San Francisco, apparently, was not the taxidermy hotspot of the world. Not a single taxidermy shop. Google search sent him to San Bruno, to Majerus Magic Taxidermy. It was dark, after 7, and the shop should have been closed, but he'd called ahead, and the owner was waiting for him. Brian opened the door, hearing the familiar tingle of a little bell. There was only one man in the shop. "Hello, you must be Officer Clouser. I'm Bing Majerus." Bing Majerus was not what Brian had expected. He'd expected, of course, some big old white dude wearing a cat baseball hat, sporting a short beard, with a beer gut peeking out from under an old dirty t-shirt. Bing was white, but that's where the comparison ended. For starters, he was in his mid to late 20s. He also looked like the only hunting he did was for happy hour bargains at Castro Street bars. He sported 2 large circular black ear discs, glasses with trendy black frames, and jet black hair gelled up into a spiky scenester coif. Pardon me for asking," Brian said, "but do you really know what you're doing? I mean, you don't exactly, you don't look like a taxidermist." "You mean I don't look old, fat, and 20 years out of style?" Brian nodded. "That's okay. I get that a lot," Bing said. "I'm a graduate of the Canadian College of Taxidermy in McCready, Manitoba. Went there right after high school, graduated early. I apprenticed under some of the world's best taxidermists for 3 years, then bought my own store, right here at 26. I also like to look good. Don't hate me because I'm beautiful, officer." "I'll try not to." "Just look around you," Bing said, spreading his arms to take in the showroom full of perfectly stuffed creatures. Bears, big cats, elk, deer, and more. "I'm extremely talented at my art. I moved to the Bay Area because of all the Japs. They love me. I have bodies airlifted to me from all over the world. I'm in San Bruno because I couldn't afford San Francisco when I started out, and now that I'm rolling in it, I like the low rent here, and I'm not paying San Francisco prices, Does that assuage your fears?" "Well, that depends." "On what?" "On what assuage means." "To reduce, to lessen." "Oh, in that case, yeah, it assuages my fears." Bing smiled, the easy smile of someone who is excellent at what they do. He didn't mind explaining himself, and probably had to do it 2 or 3 times a day when people saw him for the first time. "Now, can I see what you brought for me?" "Do you have a back area?" Brian asked. There was no one else in the showroom, but the fewer people who saw what was inside the blanket, the better. "Of course, officer. Follow me." Bing led him into the back of the studio. The large back room held multiple plastic buckets, neatly stacked rolls of burlap and cotton, and animals in various stages of preparation. There wasn't a speck of dirt on the floor. The place fit Bing's personality perfectly. A giant white mannequin stood in the corner behind a stainless steel table, on which lay the spread-out fur of a bear. "Looks like you're quite the environmentalist," Brian said. "Got any spotted owl keychains in the gift shop?" Bing laughed. "No, but if you've got a spotted owl, honey, I'll prepare it. You one of those bleeding heart animal lovers? Let me tell you something, officer. Most of the people who bitch about hunters have rarely, if ever, set foot in the wilderness. Hunters are the best conservationists you'll ever find, and they know more about maintaining populations than some code pink woman who thinks a wild place means crossing the bridge into Oakland. And you know what? 99.9% of the species that ever graced the planet were extinct before mankind ever walked erect. Extinction is the natural way of things. And no matter what we do, everything we know is going to go extinct anyway. That's nature, man. Extinction is nature, not freezing time and helping unfit species survive when their time is past." Brian blinked a few times. How about I just shut the fuck up and we get down to business? I second the motion. Brian recognized many white mannequin shapes as animals. Deer, a big cat, some lithe little thing he thought maybe he'd seen on a National Geographic special. One he didn't recognize. It had a wide head that connected directly to thick shoulders. The head was about chest high, and the back led down at a steep angle to a narrow pair of rear hips. On the stainless steel table in front of this one lay a big cowhide. What the hell is that thing? That thing is about $150,000 if I do a good job on it, and I don't talk about it. Know what I'm saying? That's what that thing is. All I'll say is I'm not vacationing in northern Michigan anytime soon. Now, sir, if you don't mind, I have a great deal of work to do and a greater amount of money to make. So, if you please. Bing gestured to an unoccupied stainless steel table. Brian set the blanket on the table, then unfolded it. Bing looked, and Bing laughed. Brian looked at Bing, then at the creature, then back again. So, it's fake then? Bing nodded. This is what we call rogue taxidermy. He ran his hands over the compact creature. Size-wise, it looked like a squat fire hydrant with thick arms and legs. A pit bull on steroids, maybe. Mottled, slate-gray fur would let the thing blend into any shadow. The body looked like no animal that Brian had ever seen. The head, however, put the creature on a completely different playing field. One big, black, glass eye stared out from the center of the head, with two smaller eyes below it to either side. Short, pointy teeth filled the jaws, all slanting backwards towards the wide throat. That alone was enough to give anyone pause, but the mandibles were the real attention-getters. Bing's hands played over the muscular lumps on each side of the creature's head. The fur-covered lumps led to 8-inch-long serrated pincers, or mandibles, like those of a soldier ant. Bing, are you going to tell me what rogue taxidermy is? It's combining different animal parts to make a fantastical creature. You know, like mythical animals. Unicorns, chimeras, griffins, things of that nature. I'm afraid my knowledge of mythology doesn't include dogs, cyclops, ant creatures. Bing shook his head. Oh, this isn't from a myth. Your taxidermist made this up. I mean, don't get me wrong. Whoever did this did a decent job with the physiology. Everything looks like it's in the right place, you know? So the guy knows his physiology, but he is a shit taxidermist. The skin is coming off in places. He did a horrible job preserving the fur of whatever he used to put this thing together. Are you sure it's fake? Can you, take a look at the skeleton or something? There isn't a skeleton. You skin the animal, remove the flesh, then use modeling clay around the skeleton to build up the animal's shape. Then you make a mold of that shape and fill the mold with urethane foam to make it cast. That's why stuffed animals are so light. You tan the hide, then put the hide in that cast. Except for the skin, everything else gets thrown out. Brian sighed and rubbed his face. He was so damn tired. He had thought this would give him more answers, but it only raised more questions. I'll tell you what, Bing said. I don't know what you're looking for, but this is good for a giggle or two. I'll take this little cutie apart and see what I can find. Maybe I can identify what kind of animals this came from, maybe how he made those cool mandibles, etc., okay? Then I'll give you a call. Go ahead and take off. If you don't mind me saying so, officer, you look like you'd be a handsome man if you got some sleep. Brian nodded, shook Bing's hand, then headed for the door. It would take him 20 minutes to get back to San Francisco, depending on traffic. It was already nighttime, and he wondered what horrors the darkness would bring this time. So there we are with episode number 20. Now I'm going to go ahead and say that episode 21 is a humdinger. I realize that sometimes in the past, more than once, I've told you that I'm going to present to you the greatest episode ever. And I feel I've always backed that up. And yet episode 21 is going to be the greatest episode ever. I've got some flat out guns a-blazing, people jumping through windows, brains exploding, kind of John Woo-ish type action scenes. And then I've got some icky scenes that might be right up there with the mommy incident. And by the way, those of you who listened to episode 19 and said mommy was no big deal, you're a bunch of friggin' freaks. That's a big deal. A giant woman with a belly the size of an elephant that's translucent, and there's a bunch of fetuses in there, and they're backlit, and you can see them kicking around and whatnot, and she's kicking out fetuses on top of the person that she's mounting. God, that's disgusting. What's wrong with you people? Look, that's disgusting. So let's go over the stuff I teased you about at the beginning of the episode. First of all, fixing of the feed. Pulsar and I are trying to make some corrections to the site so that it runs well when, hopefully, this giant onslaught of new junkies hits the site after we start showing up in stores and kicking everyone's ass with a story that most of you already know very well. So we changed the main feed location, and one of the side effects was all of the episodes that you have already listened to may have shown up in your podcatcher client a second time. If that happened, we're awful sorry about that. Most podcatchers are configured to not automatically download the episodes. The ones that are a little bit pissed off at me. But you guys, I have told you before that I am a tech-tard. So if you're going to get mad at me for making a technical mistake, don't know what to tell you. That's like getting mad at a politician for lying, like getting mad at a baby for crying. Dare I say, it's like getting mad at the sun for rising in the morning. Some things are just a fact of life. We make the best do we can, and we move on. The episode's a little shorter this week for a few reasons. Number one, I was fighting traffic noise like you cannot believe. Apparently, nobody told me there was going to be an IndyCar race right in front of my friggin' house. I'm pretty sure that's what was going on. Endless traffic, endless trucks. A lot of you guys know that I record in a freaking closet that happens to be right on top of a road called Franklin Street in San Francisco with 3 lanes going one way and a lot of motorcycle action, a lot of diesel truck action, and just trying to control that noise was driving me flipping insane. So that made the recording process go a lot longer than normal. Another reason for it being shorter is we didn't have as much time this week because we're working on what could be the coolest book trailer in the history of mankind. Far be it from me to be over the top with a claim, but I'm going to go ahead and say that this little gem, which has had the creative hands of Kevin Capizzi and Earl Newton on it, I'm going to go ahead and say it's making me nippies hard, okay? It's making my nippies all stick out like it's my first junior high dance. Whee! So those things have made it a little bit difficult to get a long episode done. However, I'm telling you, episode 21, big old fat roll-up of an episode, it's going to be great. And yes, I did say the words National Public Radio, NPR. Now, a lot of you who are book buyers in the science fiction world, maybe you don't listen to NPR all that much. Maybe you're happy with your podcast, and that's just great. I'm mostly happy with my podcast. That's pretty much all I listen to these days. But for the general non-internet addicted book buying world, NPR is like a giant line of crack cocaine and meth all rolled up into a red Twizzler and dangled in front of their nose all day long. That's really what, actually, if you look at NPR's corporate site, that's the definition of NPR's mission statement, which is to be a giant crack cocaine meth imbued red Twizzler. The guys at Crown have gotten all crazy. And we are going to be on Weekend Edition on March 30th. And we're going to be on Tech Nation. Now, Tech Nation is more of a syndicated show. It's on 71 markets, apparently, across the U.S. Don't know exactly what day, don't know exactly what time we're going to be on that show. We'll be posting that information at scottsigler.com. This is a really big show for NPR. It's really a sweet spot for all of us junkies who are into the technology stuff, into the biotech. So a lot of people who are tuning into that show on a weekly basis are going to be extremely intrigued when they hear the plot of Infected. And then we get to talk about the podcasting side of Infected. So hopefully that's going to help move a whole lot of books. Bunch of NPR people all of a sudden getting down with some nasty stuff that goes on in Infected. And maybe we'll convert their asses to junkiedom. I think that's pretty fun. Maybe we'll get the sweaty balls guy to convert over. Good times. As for Weekend Edition, yes, we are going to be on March 30th. I don't know what time. I believe that's also based on when they locally run the show. So you're going to want to go check out your NPR website, check out your station's information, find out when you're going to hear your future dark overlord invade NPR. Now, here's the thing, people. NPR, fairly highbrow network. They're all, liberal, and they're all into like treating each other nice and solving problems and world peace and composting and all that stuff. Like brewing your own beer, whatever, wine. I don't know. But I'll tell you what they're not. They're not about taking over the planet. They have no idea what kind of venomous bile-filled poison they've invited into their own living room. And when the future Dark Overlord gets onto NPR, let me tell you people, we're going to be converting a lot of smarty pants over to the side of evil. Now, granted, I will not be able to drop F-bombs as frequently as they might be dropped on this show. I will not be able to do that on NPR, which is sad. Now, I'm sure Matt Wallace could get away with it because he's Matt freaking Wallace. And I'm sure Mark Yoshimoto F-Bomb Nemkov could get away with it because he's probably been on NPR and they're all probably kissing his ass because he's Mark Nemkov and he's probably dropping F-bombs left and right. And they're like, hey, that's fabulous, Mark. We love it when you drop the F-bombs. How quaint. But me, the dirty butt drunk of the whole podcasting community, they're going to make me stay on my best behavior, but we'll still be getting the message across. We'll be getting the evil, future, dark overlord message across, and we're going to convert a bunch of people. It's going to be sweet. As for when that trailer is going to be ready, not sure. Hopefully we'll have it done before April 1st. We were hoping to have it done before March 1st, but scheduling got away from us. We weren't able to get that done. However, this is going to be a sweet MFR. I'm telling you guys are probably going to want to forward this around a lot. The author video, if you've seen that, me being all douchey in my little coat talking about the book, it's pretty cool. But this is like a movie caliber trailer, and we're very, very fired up about it. And I think you guys are going to love it. So just to recap, April 1st is so close. I can smell it. If you want to help promote the future Dark Overlord, you're going to want to go to infectednovel.com, click on the download links, and you're going to see a bunch of tools there where you can go put up flyers, you can burn CDs, you can pass those out. There's an email postcard. You can do a lot of things to help your future Dark Overlord take over. The book tour is ready to go. Those dates are all posted over at scottsigler.com on the left-hand margin. If you're going to be in LA, Seattle, San Francisco, Houston, or New York, please check that out so that maybe we can get together and say hey. Oh, and I have just learned we will be giving away the full PDF of Infected, unabridged, beginning to end. Only get to do that for 3 days at the end of March. So I'm just going to be dropping it in this feed. So make sure that you're checking your podcatcher. The PDF should show up. If you're hearing this and you manually go to the site to get your episodes, you're going to need to go to scottsigler.com from March 27th through March 31st. And at some point during that time, like for 2 or 3 days up during that time, we'll have the whole PDF. So you ebook fans, you can just download it, you can print it, you can do whatever the hell you want. Crown's compromising a little. I was pushing for them to give this away for free. They're going to give it away for only 3 days. So grab your copy and then feel free to email it to all your buddies. See if you can get them hooked on that dark smack. Know what I'm saying? On that dark smack. So that's it for this week, my junkies. An episode of Infected is coming right down the same feed. And stay tuned for episode 21 of Nocturnal. Catch you next week. You have been listening to Nocturnal, written and performed by Scott Sigler. For more information, go to scottsigler.com. All music in this podcast provided by Uncrowned off their album Devils and Angels, available now at the iTunes Music Store.
Is it